Close your eyes. Just for a moment, imagine escaping the noise of the modern world, the chaos of cities, traffic, and the never-ending stream of notification sounds. Transport your mind to the most spectacular geography of the United States, to the tranquil mountain towns of Colorado. What do you see in your imagination? Snow-white ski slopes, luxury mountain homes and resorts built with billion-dollar investments illuminated at night, and those picture-perfect main streets covered in fresh snow with their Victorian-era architecture. Perhaps you imagine yourself sitting by a massive stone fireplace, a warm cup of coffee in hand, watching the snow fall outside. This home is your sanctuary. This view brings you peace. This was the ultimate version of the American dream, mountain dream. For years, we were sold this story. God made this place special. It's limited, only for the chosen few. And in the last decade, especially during the pandemic, this story turned into a frenzy. Tech CEOs, business people, and New York stockbrokers all fled city centers and flocked to these towns, which they dubbed Zoomtown. If you have an internet connection and a laptop, why shouldn't your office be at the top of the Rocky Mountains? People were trampling over each other for a mountain cabin. They made offers on houses they hadn't even seen, just based on the photos in the listing. Prices defied logic. Millions of dollars flew around as if they were monopoly money. Everyone believed the party would last forever. They thought the rise would continue indefinitely. But when the calendar turned to 2026, a dark reality lay beneath the white snow. The dream was over. It was time to wake up. And this awakening turned into a nightmare for millions of property owners. Colorado's high-altitude paradise towns are now experiencing the biggest financial freefall of the last decade, perhaps even of modern history. The higher the mountains in the landscape, the higher the prices fell. Some optimists called it a market correction. No, what's happening is not that innocent. This is in every sense a textbook real estate disaster. The massive bubble inflated by the pandemic, the Zoomtown trend, those Instagram posts, the elite influx from the coast. It's all over. The party's over, the guests have left, and all that's left are the dishes, unpaid mortgages, and unsellable mansions. Today, in this video, we won't just be looking at Colorado's unique scenery. Like a financial detective, we'll look at 10 mountain towns where the real estate market crashed hardest, investors fled in panic, and the local population vanished. What you'll see on this journey may shock you. You'll see listings where price drops look like typos, ultra-luxury homes that have been empty for over a year, and most frighteningly, we'll enter those dead-end streets where the insurance crisis has made property ownership technically impossible. This list isn't just tabloid fodder about how much money the rich have lost. It's the story of how an entire community vanished, how towns turned into soulless ghost towns. You won't believe what you'll hear when we get to number 1, because that's the legendary place everyone said was unsinkable, the one they thought was untouchable. But the data doesn't lie, and local real estate agents are doing everything they can to hide this truth. If you're ready, let's move on to the video to see how big the real estate bubble burst and the avalanche on the mountain was. But first, if you want to see more of this kind of data and facts, subscribe to the channel now and hit the like button. Share what you know and your expectations in the comments. If there's a region that surprises you or you'd like to see here, share it in the comments. Your comments are important to our community. All right, let's move on to the video. We're at number 10 on our list. Number 10, Pagosa Springs. We begin our journey in Pagosa Springs, located in southern Colorado near the New Mexico border, famous for its renowned and healing hot springs. This place used to be a bustling, crowded spot along I-70 with never-ending traffic, yet it retained the calm, slow-paced, old-fashioned Colorado spirit. People came here not to show off, but to heal, relax, and unwind. However, in recent years, that tranquility has given way to frozen fear and deep investor panic. Pagosa Springs has become a textbook, cautionary example of the short-term rental boom. During the pandemic, investors swarmed here like locusts. They bought every cabin, every house, every shelter they could find to list on Airbnb and VRBO. Their goal was simple. I'll buy a house here, rent it to tourists, enjoy my vacation, and the house will pay for itself with money left over. This was the guaranteed passive income fairy tale sold to them by real estate gurus. This rush drove prices to levels the locals could scarcely imagine. The locals in the town were left behind. There were no waiters, teachers, or nurses left to work. They all had to leave town because of the prices. When the housing crisis became unbearable, the city council and local government slammed on the brakes. First, they froze new rental permits, then imposed strict quotas on licenses. The moment this decision was made, the rug was pulled out from under the market. Investors woke up one morning to find that their golden goose was no longer laying eggs and wasn't even covering its feed costs. According to AirDNA data, future booking calendars in the region have already dropped by 40%. That guaranteed income story had been blown away by the mountain winds. Right now, the market is in complete chaos. Data from the Archuleta County Association of Realtors lays the situation bare. The inventory of homes priced above $1 million, the very luxury segment that investors target, has increased by 95% compared to last year. You heard that right. The inventory of luxury homes for sale has nearly doubled. Everyone is trying to sell, but there are no buyers. The clearest indicator of this situation, according to Zillow data, is that it takes an average of 130 days to sell a home in Pagosa Springs. That's 3 times longer than 2 years ago. Back then, homes sold within hours. Now it takes months. Redfin data paints an even bleaker picture. 1 in 3 homes currently on the market has undergone a significant price reduction in the last month. But the real disaster lies in the town's economic reality, namely the unbridgeable gap between income and price. According to the Colorado Department of Labor, the maximum home price that local residents can afford with their income, i.e. what the economy supports, is around $350,000. So what is the current median list price? Despite all those discounts and panic, it's still over $700,000. The math is clear. Investors have fled and locals can't afford it. Where does a market with no buyers go? Only down. Pagosa Springs is living proof of how restrictions and greed can lock up a market overnight. Number 9. Durango from Pagosa. We head west on Highway 160 to the historic railroad town of Durango. This isn't just a seasonal ski resort, it's a living place with a university, a real city center, and a year-round economy. And that's precisely why the collapse here is more frightening. Because the crisis isn't happening in an artificial resort town reliant on tourists, but in a city with solid foundations. What's happening in Durango is called freezing. The market has been virtually shackled by high interest rates. The latest report from the Durango Real Estate Association lays out the situation clearly, with undeniable figures. Total home sales have plummeted by 52% compared to 2 years ago. Note, I'm not talking about prices. Transaction volume has fallen by 52%. This means the market has almost come to a standstill. There is no buying or selling, only waiting. Why? Because sellers are in a bind. Most are clinging tightly to the free mortgage loans they took out during the pandemic at 2.5% or 3% interest and don't want to sell. Because if they sell their homes, they'll have to pay nearly 7% interest on their new home, so they're not putting their homes on the market. That's why inventory appears low on paper and prices remain artificially high. This is a false stability. But the cracks are growing. Individual sellers might be able to wait another year, but builders don't have the luxury of waiting. According to data from the La Plata County Planning Department, the inventory of newly built but unsold luxury homes is swelling. Pre-sales are near zero. No one is getting into these projects. Builders are panicking. Right now, they are offering massive incentives like $50,000 closing cost assistance or interest rate reductions to sell homes. These are actually a polite way of saying price reduction. Instead of lowering prices and sending the market into a panic, they are giving the money back through the back door. This is a silent collapse. Worse still, the city is losing population. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Durango's population has stalled for the first time in 30 years. Young people, families, and the workforce that represents the city's future are leaving. According to a report by Align Durango, a local economic forum, you need to earn $90,000 a year to afford a typical 2-bedroom apartment in Durango. But the median household income is only $72,000. How long can a city survive when its own people can't afford to live there, when teachers can't pay their rent? With wealthy cash buyers also disappearing due to high interest rates, all that's left is a quiet wait. There's a strange silence in Durango right now. The panic selling hasn't started yet, but the market has stopped breathing. Which is worse, do you think? A noisy collapse or a slow, painful, silent death. Number 8, Silverthorne. Now we turn north to the I-70 corridor to Silverthorne. You know this place. It's where you pass by on your way to Keystone or Breckenridge, where that big outlet mall is. Most people see it as just a rest stop, but for the real estate market, it's a critical indicator. For years, Silverthorne was marketed as Summit County's affordable alternative. If you can't afford a home in Breckenridge, buy in Silverthorne. It's cheap and close, they said. But now, when you look at the town, all you see is an unfinished construction disaster and a burst supply bubble. Silverthorne has become the ground zero of overbuilding. Contractors, fueled by cheap money during the pandemic, built as if demand would never end. The Summit County Realtors Association's latest report makes the situation clear. The new housing stock in the area has increased by a whopping 145% compared to last year. 145%. That's a market in crisis. The problem is, there's no one to buy all these homes. According to Zillow data, the average home in Silverthorne now sits on the market for 128 days. That's 2.5 times longer than 2 years ago. Buyers now have the upper hand while sellers are begging. According to Redfin data, 45% of active listings have already seen significant price reductions. We're not talking about $5,000 to $10,000. They're slashing prices by $50,000 chunks each time. And the final nail in the coffin, new Airbnb restrictions. The city council pulled the rug out from under investors by imposing restrictions on short-term rentals. According to AirDNA data, reservations in restricted areas have dropped by 50%. The cash flow investors relied on has dried up. Mortgage payments continue, but there's no income. The result? A full-blown ghost town scenario. Colorado Department of Labor data hits us with the harsh reality. Local residents' income barely covers the cost of a $400,000 home, but median home prices, despite all the discounts, remain at $900,000. Locals can't afford it. Investors aren't interested. Silverthorne's population has started to decline for the first time in 20 years. Builders and the last buyers who bought at the peak are now stuck with negative equity. The value of the home is less than the debt. This town serves as a lesson in how uncontrolled growth, greedy development, and sudden policy changes can lead to disaster. Number 7, Crested Butte. Leaving the main road and heading south on a long, scenic route, we arrive at one of Colorado's most isolated, iconic, and beautiful towns, Crested Butte. It's not a town, it's a living postcard. Historic, preserved, and incredibly beautiful. But beneath this beauty lies a deep denial. You won't see the collapse in Crested Butte at first glance, but the data screams. This is where the ultra-luxury market has completely locked up, where the rich's toy has broken. For years, it was marketed as Vail's antithesis. We're not artificial like Vail, we're real, we're authentic, they said. Ironically, this authenticity attracted billionaires and sent median home prices soaring above $2 million. Now those homes are just sitting. Local real estate data is grim. Total sales volume has plummeted by 60%. Worse still, sales in the luxury segment above $3 million have dropped by 80%. Those wealthy saviors have vanished. If you look at Zillow data, it takes an average of 210 days to sell a home in Crested Butte. You heard that right. You have to wait at least 7 months, almost a year, to sell a home. This is not a functioning market. It's a frozen market. While local realtors try to downplay the situation, Redfin data reveals the truth. Nearly half of active listings have had their prices reduced. And here we encounter that major adversary: insurance. Crested Butte's isolation and the surrounding wildfire risk have caused insurance premiums to skyrocket. In a conversation with a local real estate agent, we learned that they received an insurance quote of $70,000 per year for a $4 million home. Imagine paying $6,000 a month just to insure your home against burning down. It's an absurd figure that would turn even billionaires' stomachs. This place was built on the greater fool theory. It was always assumed that someone richer would come along and buy that house at a higher price. But now those richer fools are gone. The wealthy can perhaps wait, but what about those who need to sell? Crested Butte is currently a financial trap. The authenticity brand has now become radioactive. Number 6, Steamboat Springs. We're heading north, much further north. to Steamboat Springs, which proudly calls itself Ski Town, USA. It used to be different. Not just a polished resort town, but a real cowboy and farming town where rodeos were held and high school games were attended on Friday nights. But in the last 5 years, it sold its soul to luxury and is now paying a heavy price. The collapse in Steamboat isn't just about real estate prices. It's about the backbone of the local economy breaking. Between 2019 and 2023, median home prices in Steamboat doubled. That's a 100% increase. But what about wages? According to the Yampa Valley Economic Development Council, wages only increased by 8%. This gap swept away everyone living in the town, the very workforce that made the town what it was. The results are devastating. Schools are emptying. The Steamboat Springs School District announced a 10% drop in student enrollment last year. The local hospital, UC Health Yampa Valley, has declared a staffing crisis. Not because they can't find qualified doctors and nurses, but because even the doctors they hire can't find a place to live here. How can a town that can't house its own workers, its own doctors, function? And the real estate market, especially the condo market, is a complete disaster. Steamboat is full of high-maintenance, poorly maintained apartment buildings dating back to the 1980s. With the introduction of the country's highest short-term rental tax, these apartments have become financial dead investments, money traps. The data is shocking. The current inventory of condos for sale has increased by 120% compared to last year. There is no abundance of apartments on the market. Prices? According to a local appraisal firm's report, they are 25% below their peak. Those apartments that were snapped up for $900,000 2 years ago now cannot find buyers at $650,000. The middle class has disappeared. The middle segment of the market has collapsed. Steamboat Springs is the most painful, concrete example of what happens to a town when it forgets who it serves. Number 5, Breckenridge. We've reached number 5 in the countdown and returned to the king of Summit County, the heavyweight champion of mountain tourism, Breckenridge. This is a legend that attracts over 3 million visitors a year with its historic main street and world-class slopes. But right now, Breckenridge is a victim of its own success. It's teetering on the edge of a financial cliff. The name of the crisis in Breckenridge: overregulation and self-destruction. In an attempt to solve the housing crisis, the town's administration took such harsh and aggressive measures that it choked the market. The strictest nationwide bans on short-term rentals became a nightmare for investors. The Summit County Realtors Association clearly warned this policy vaporized 30% of property values overnight. Exaggeration? Look at AirDNA data. Rental income in the new restricted areas has plummeted by 70%. No income means no mortgage payments. Investors are frantically trying to sell. But who will they sell to? There are no buyers. According to Zillow data, the active housing inventory in Breckenridge has increased by 90% compared to last year. These are not ghost listings. These are real homes, fully furnished, but without owners. According to a local title company's report, total sales transactions have been falling steadily for 6 consecutive quarters, 1.5 years. This is not a slowdown. It is a full-blown housing depression. And the crisis isn't just in housing. On that famous main street, there are currently 45 vacant stores, according to the Breckenridge Business Association. This is the highest vacancy rate ever recorded in the town's history. Tourists are coming, but they're day trippers. The wealthy crowd that used to spend money is gone. Breckenridge turns into a theme park in winter and a ghost town in the off-season. Number 4, Telluride. You really have to be special to make this list. In 4th place is that legendary place that's hard to reach and even harder to leave, Telluride. This was a billionaire's refuge, an isolated bubble with its own rules. But in 2025, that bubble couldn't withstand the high-altitude pressure and burst. The collapse in Telluride isn't about the middle class, it's about the collapse of ultra-luxury, the untouchables. The data from the Telluride Real Estate Association is chilling. Home sales over $5 million have dropped by a full 85% from their peak. You heard that right. Sales are down 85%. California's tech money and Texas's oil money have dried up. Those days of bidding wars are over. The market has frozen. Right now, it takes an average of 300 days to sell a home in Telluride. That's almost a whole year. In contrast, there's a stock explosion. The inventory of luxury homes priced between $5 million and $10 million has increased by 150%. Everyone is trying to get out the door at the same time, but the door is locked. So why? Is it just interest rates? No. The problem is the cost of being here. According to the town's own economic report, the price of a gallon of milk in the local market has skyrocketed to $12. This inflation has wiped out the town's workforce, and the population is aging. The young people have fled. According to U.S. Census data, the median age has increased by a full 6 years in the last 10 years. Telluride is no longer a living, breathing town. It's a retirement home for elderly, wealthy, and lonely people who live there part-time. And the final blow came not from the sky, but from insurance policies. Because Telluride is in a box canyon, the risk of fire is very high. Insurance giants stopped issuing new policies. You can't get a mortgage on an uninsurable home. This means Telluride is now only a cash market. And when cash is king, no one wants to hold a falling knife worth $10 million. Number 3, Edwards. Now we're going to a place that most of you have probably never heard of, but which is the heart of this crisis, the engine room, Edwards. This was the real face of Vail Valley. This is where the workers at the hotels in Vail and Beaver Creek lived, but Edwards collapsed. And this collapse wasn't the kind we're used to, it was a reverse collapse. During the pandemic, the wealthy didn't just take Vail, they invaded Edwards too, saying this is quieter, more local. They bought up the working class's homes and drove up prices. The result? The local people were driven out of their own town. Right now, there are over 3,000 open positions on the local job board. There are jobs, there is an economy, but there are no people to work. Why? Because there's nowhere to live. Even the education system is collapsing. The local school district is currently operating with a shortage of 70 teachers, simply because it can't find housing for them. The real estate market has turned into a complete zombie. Data shows how the market has split in two. Sales in the local market below $1 million have fallen by 60%. Why? Because there are no such houses left to sell. That segment has disappeared. In contrast, the stock of luxury homes above $2 million has more than doubled, increasing by over 100%. Edwards is now a ghost town filled with empty mansions where the wealthy come for 3 weeks a year and the curtains stay closed the rest of the time. Edwards is where the local population has died out. And if there's no local population, who will run those billion-dollar ski resorts? This is a social collapse turning into a financial disaster. Number 2, Vail, and we come to the legend. The place considered the world's safest real estate haven, where for half a century it was said, buying property here never loses money. Vail. That era is officially over. Vail fell into the elitism trap it created and is now paying the price of aging. The anatomy of this collapse is like a 3-headed monster. Aging buildings, astronomical fees, and changing tastes. First, let's look at the cost of ownership. Do you know how much the average monthly HOA fee is for an apartment in Vail Village? Over $2,000, excluding mortgage, excluding taxes. You have to donate $24,000 a year to the management just to walk through the door. This is unsustainable. Data from the Vail Realtors Association shows how buyers are escaping this cost. Total transaction volume in Vail Village has dropped by a full 70% from its peak. Buyers haven't slowed down. They've evaporated. So, where did they go? To Jackson Hole, to Big Sky, to newer, more modern facilities. Because Vail has aged. According to local appraisers, Vail has the oldest inventory in the country. The average building was constructed in 1984. Today, if you buy a house for $5 million, you need to spend at least $500,000 on renovations to bring it up to modern standards. Sellers are shocked and helpless. According to Redfin data, it now takes an average of 180 days, or a full 6 months, to sell a home in Vail. And discounts, it's no longer about negotiation room, but panic discounts. Prices are dropping by an average of 12%. On a $5 million home, that's a $600,000 loss. It's not a car payment, it's a fortune being wiped out. Number 1, Aspen and the Peak. The end of the list. Number 1. This isn't a town. It's not even a geographic location. It's a global brand. This is Aspen, where billionaires hide, Hollywood stars send Christmas cards, and the world's richest 0.01% play. For years, there was only one rule in Aspen's real estate market: prices never fall in Aspen. People saw it as a safe haven, like a Swiss bank account. But 2025 went down in history as the year this rule turned into a bitter joke, a financial farce. Aspen is currently experiencing the largest, most severe, and most costly real estate crash in Colorado history. The figures we'll discuss here are the kind a middle-class family would never see in a lifetime, but the losses are equally massive. Looking at Aspen Glenwood MLS data, the picture that emerges is the anatomy of a bubble bursting. The median sales price of single-family homes has fallen by a full 32% from its peak. Pause and let that number sink in. 32%. In an ordinary town, that means a $300,000 home dropping to $200,000. But this is Aspen. Here, 32% means a $40 million mansion now sells for $28 million, a $12 million evaporation with a single signature. We're talking about billions of dollars in wealth wiped off the books. This is the moment when the global wealth transfer reverses. So, where are the buyers? Where did those famous cash kings go? The data is clear. Total sales have plummeted by 65%. Buyers haven't slowed down, they've vanished. Private jets are no longer landing here. The pandemic's mountain-dwelling CEOs have been called back to their offices. The era of free money is over. Currently, the number of active listings in Aspen has increased by 210%. Everyone is trying to get out the door at the same time. Everyone is saying the party's over and wants to grab their coat and leave, but there's a stampede at the coat check. According to Zillow data, it takes an average of 275 days to sell a home in Aspen. This is no longer a functioning liquid market. It is a vast cold museum of unsold mansions and locked-up palaces. And the crisis isn't limited to real estate. Aspen's brand is also fading. Reports from the Pitkin County assessor whisper the most frightening truth. The commercial tax base is evaporating. Those luxury stores, those million-dollar art galleries, sales are down 50%. Why? Because there are no people in town. U.S. Census Bureau data confirms that over 60% of homes in Aspen remain vacant for more than 10 months of the year. Aspen was once the city of the living. Now it's a part-time ghost town. This is where the illusion ended, the curtain fell, and when the lights came on, all that remained was a billion-dollar wreck. The collapse in Aspen is the most severe on the list because the climb was the highest and the fall was the hardest. This is the undisputed #1 real estate disaster in Colorado. This is the picture. From the investor panic in Pagosa Springs on the New Mexico border, to the construction dump on the highway in Silverthorne, to the silent cry of Edwards, where local life has been completely wiped out, and finally, to Aspen's $40 million collapse, where the billionaire's dream turned into a nightmare. What we're seeing isn't the story of a single town or a single bad season. This is the story of the Colorado Mountain Dream, a massive bubble inflated by cheap money, pandemic psychology, and greed now bursting. Those who believe the lie that prices only go up for years are now facing the harsh reality of financial gravity. These markets are not correcting. These markets are not cooling off. The data, the charts, and the realities on the ground are screaming one thing. These markets are in free fall. The avalanche has already started. Its roar is just now being heard, but the destruction has begun. And no one knows how far this debris will spread or where in the valley it will stop. This video is a very serious warning for those still dreaming of a mountain retreat, those asking, is now the right time? For those who bought at the peak, unfortunately, it's a very expensive lesson in a harsh reality. Trying to catch a falling knife can cut your hands. Perhaps the best thing to do is watch from a safe distance until the storm passes. So what do you think? Do you think these 30%, 40% drops are a historic buying opportunity? Or is this just the beginning? Which town story shocked you the most? Aspen's billionaires or Steamboat's doctors who lost their homes? Let's meet in the comments and share your thoughts. To keep discussing the facts based solely on the data, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next crisis report, maybe in your city. Take care and keep your money safe.